কবে হাম বুঝব সে যুগল প্রীতি বিষয় ছাড়িয়া কবে শুদ্ধ হবে মন কবে হাম হেরম শ্রী বৃন্দাবন বিষয় ছাড়িয়া কবে শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ শ্রী অদ্বৈত রাধা শিবাসাদি গৌর ভক্ত কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে হরে Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Rama Hare
Hare, Hare
Rama
Ram,
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare
Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna,
Rama
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Rama
Hare
Rama
Hare,
Hare
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 Ram, Hare
Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare
Rama
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Rama
Krishna,
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare
Hare, Hare
Hare
Ram, Hare
Krishna Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Ram
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare
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 Krishna,
Rama Hare
Hare
Rama
Krishna,
Rama
Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna Krishna
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Hare
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 Hare.
Rama Hare
Hare
Rama Rama
Krishna,
Rama Hare
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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Hare, Hare
Krishna Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Ram Ram,
Ram
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Ram 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 Hare
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 Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare
Ram, Hare
Hare Ram
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram Ram
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare
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 Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
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 Ram,
Ram
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram Hare
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Hare
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 Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
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 Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Ram Ram
Hare
Ram
Krishna,
Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Ram Ram Ram
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Ram Ram Hare
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 Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare, Hare
Krishna Hare
Ram,
Hare
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 Ram, Ram
Ram
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Ram Ram
Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Ram, Ram
Ram
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Ram Ram
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Hare Ram
Hare
Ram Ram
Krishna,
Hare
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 Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna Hare
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Hare
Ram, Hare
Ram
Hare.
Hare Ram Ram
Hare
Ram Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
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 Ram,
Hare Ram
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
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 Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Ram
Ram Hare
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare Ram
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna,
Ram
Krishna
Ram
Krishna,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Hare,
Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Krishna Krishna
Ram, Hare
Krishna
Hare.
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Ram
Krishna,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Krishna,
Ram
Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare, Hare
Krishna Hare
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Hare
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 Hare.
Ram Hare
Hare
Ram
Krishna,
Ram
Hare
Ram Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Krishna Krishna
Ram,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Ram Ram Ram
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Hare Ram
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Hare Hare.
Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Ram, Hare
Ram
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Hare Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
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 Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Ram
Ram Hare
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
गुर के प्रीत लगाओ रही रे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and welcome to the Sunday morning Srimad Bhagavatam reading and discussion from the original Delhi Bhagavatams, 1962, 64, and 65, which we now have available, and this week we'll announce the details on the distribution and the pricing for everyone. And this way we'll continue the next step in our mission to protect Prabhupada's legacy by studying, which we are today. The reading is from the original texts, original books, and in the future, help us to distribute our 2,000 sets of Srimad Bhagavatams, and then from there go ahead and print again. So we have many projects that we're planning and executing. You have to judge people, and you have to judge a mission by its results. You can't simply talk about things and never do anything. I was looking at a video the other day, and someone was saying, I never listen to what people speak, because most of the time they don't do it. I only see what they do, and then that shows me their character. So judge an action by its results. So that is the first announcement this morning. Secondly, I wanted to say that I got an interesting, Yashodanandana Prabhu, I got an interesting message from Vijaya Pandit in Italy, who's on the screen here. Haribo Prabhu, glories to Prabhupada. So he says to me, he goes, we have someone called Bali Mardan posting on PDA. Now, PDA is the Prabhupada Disciples Association group page. Now, if you all know, there is historically a devotee that for some time, a few years anyway, in the early years of Prabhupada's preaching work, became a somewhat known member of the Krishna movement. And I looked at the posts, because I said to him, well, that's all right, but who is this Bali Mardan? Because there's all kinds of people calling themselves from the fake gurus, Bali Mardans. And I looked at the pictures, and it's all pictures, Yashodanandana Prabhu, of Bali Mardan himself with Prabhupada in the kitchen and this and that. So I told him, oh yeah, please put them up. So this is a good thing. We like to see our Prabhupada disciples that were present when Prabhupada was here with us to be a part of our program and also share their information with us as we continue to expand our efforts. The next thing I wanted to mention was the situation in the modern world is becoming very catastrophic, let's say. Like recently, there's been all kinds of catastrophes, especially in America and in California. There's been these fires. Can you remember that? It was a little while back. There's those devastating fires that just swept over that particular part of the world and destroyed people's homes. Like, it was very uncanny. And then simultaneously, there's been an upheaval of war. There's all kinds of wars going on between Israel and the Palestinians. There's just a horrific conflict going on between the Russians and the Ukrainians. I can't figure out why they do this. Canada just gave Ukraine $3.5 billion to fight a war, and there are people living in tents on the streets here in Canada. So it doesn't really make much sense what's going on. But we can say this without question. It's due largely, and Prabhupada told us that, if you can shut the slaughterhouses in Chicago down, because that's a main center of meat production, transporting and killing animals, this will stop all wars. So the main thing is the cruelty that people, and why are they doing that? What's his name? Muskin, Harendra, Belarus. Why are they doing it? Because it's the Kali Yuga. the Iron Age of quarrel and hypocrisy, and it was inaugurated back then, 5,000 years ago, when they were beating the cow, the bull. And since then, it's just progressively got worse and worse and worse, till now they glorify McDonald's as a great company. The worst company ever was invented, along with KFC. They've abbreviated it from Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC. And people, they advertise it on TV. That it's not even advertised, they indoctrinate people into this habit of eating meat. And because of that, there is a huge collective karma that goes with that. And along with the wars, there's disease, epidemics. And look at this COVID business. I just saw a post of Jayadwaita, by the way. And he goes, I'm paraphrasing, I had a deep contemplation on taking the COVID vaccine. So he took the COVID vaccine. That was his meditation. Should I or shouldn't I take the vaccine? This vaccine that's being exposed worldwide as a fraud. It's terrible. And lots of people, millions of people are dying. Just see what happened to Bhakti Charu Swami. When he came from India, it was like a destiny. He showed up in New York. I don't know, he took the vaccine and then he went down to Florida, and in 2 days, he was dead. And I have a picture of him with this respirator mask on. I'm thinking, wow. And Bir Krishna, he was promoting, he's got some kind of fake disciples, fake guru disciples. And he's, what he's doing, or he did do, he was telling them, go and get your god brothers and god sisters and vaccinate them. Do it. Brilliant. Must be a pure devotee, huh? He's got to be. He's got to be transcendentally situated to recommend to people to take a vaccine that wasn't necessary for anybody. But anyway, just some thoughts on that. And this is another point that I wanted to make this morning for all of us. A lot of people tell us, if you meet them, they say, whatever happened to the Hare Krishnas? Huh? Ram Raghava? They ask, what has happened to the Hare Krishnas? And this morning I got a video from one of my friends who's the pharmacist. She sent me a video early in the morning, and it was a video of the Sankirtan party in Toronto this morning. And it was two people. One guy with a hat on and no dhoti or kurta or tilak or nothing. And somebody else with some East Indian fellow chanting. Yeah, a two-man kirtan party. Far different than it used to be. Ay Yashoda Nandana Prabhu. Far different. Whatever happened to the Hare Krishnas? They, especially in Canada, have disappeared. They've gone. They do not exist here. We have a $45 million building in downtown Toronto, and that's the result. Judge an action by its results. And Prabhupada told me in a letter to me personally, use this center as a preaching post to spread Krishna consciousness. And there, at that place, there is no temple president. There's no preaching leader. There's two people going out on the street. You couldn't tell if it was a Hare Krishna or a Mayavadi group from somewhere in Nowheresville. It's absolutely unbelievable. So judge an action by its result. It's gone. The movement has gone. That's why you don't see. And the question is, where are the Hare Krishnas? They're gone. Just remember, Prabhus, back in Toronto in the 70s, we used to do a collective Sankirtan party from the temple in Buffalo. Devotees from Buffalo used to come to Toronto. Devotees from Montreal used to come to Toronto. And the devotees in Toronto would be here. So there were three groups, the Buffalo devotees, the Toronto devotees, the Montreal devotees. And we'd have over, I would say, 75 Sankirtan devotees on Yonge Street chanting. 75. And it would be divided up, two groups of 35. Now, back then, people, and they still do in Toronto, go out on Sankirtan. The people still go out on Saturdays to people watch. That's what they do, walk around. Oh, look at that person. Look at that person. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this photo. All useless activity. But we would go out on Sankirtan with our parties and go up and down the street. One party going north and one party coming south. Okay, so we'd pass each other. 35 devotees on each side. Nandi would head up the one party with Mahavirya and all the devotees from Montreal. And there would be myself and Uddhama Sloka. And then I sent a picture to Yashoda of Sripati. Also being there chanting. It was fabulous. We go out and chant all day, and then we come home to the temple on Gerrard Street, and we'd have a big feast and big kirtan after. What a glorious time when we were in the Hare Krishna movement under the inspiration of the bona fide spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And just see the results now with this new system where people come and go. They don't stay. And so one group, one devotee was mentioning to me Govinda Dasi. She's traveling around. She's a Prabhupada disciple. She's traveling around around the world, going to different centers. And she said in her journey, she's noticing that people that were there 3 years ago are no longer there now. So there's a lot of dropouts, let's say. We used to call them people that blooped. You remember that, Ram Raghava? What happened to him? Well, he blooped. What is that? What did that mean? Well, you blooped. It meant the ocean of material world, and you jump back into the material world. You blooped into the material world. And you got out of Krishna consciousness. So that was another thing. I'm going to move quickly. I'm sorry. Let's see what we got. 10:16. I don't know, Ram Raghava, can you bring up this qualifications of a Brahmin? I sent it over to you. It's in Krishna book. And Rochisha Devi Dasi, you know I've been reading. I'm just about finished this beautiful book. So this is Vidura. Yeah, and there we go. I wanted to read this to all of us so we can get an idea. According to the Vedic system, charity is given to the Brahmins. See if you can bring that up closer if possible, Prabhu. If not, that's all right. It is stated in the Vedic Shastras that only the Brahmins and sannyasis can accept charity. The cowherd men from Vrindavan gave cows directed with golden ornaments and beautiful garlands. The Brahmins are given charity because they're not engaged in any business profession. It's like our group, for example. We're training people how to be Brahmins. And we don't take a salary for anything we do. No, we've collected, $30,000. And not one penny has been spent on a salary, or not one penny has been spent on some kind of travel expense. Everyone here pays their own way. And not only do they pay their own way, I've decided for myself personally that I send $108 a month to the Hare Krishna Society Book Fund. And I hope to increase it as goes on, but better that at least I feel really good about it, by the way. I just love sending the money. They're supposed to be engaged in Brahminical occupations as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Namely, they must be very learned. So we're teaching all of our members to become learned in the Shastras, yes. And our classes are filled with thousands of quotes. Over the year, thousands of quotes of Prabhupada's instructions to us how to practice Krishna consciousness. Excuse me there, thank you. They must be learned and must perform austerities and penances. Well, some penance, some austerity, yes. They must not only themselves be learned, but they must teach others. That's a business of a Brahmin. So people could say, well, I'm a guru. No, well, if you were a Brahmin, you could do the same thing. You just have to teach others. That's the responsibility of a Brahmin. Brahmins are not meant to be Brahmins alone. They should all create other Brahmins also. And that's our goal, that other people in this group will move forward, become initiated Prabhupada disciples, not Ritviks, Prabhupada disciples, and take eventually, after years of practice, first and second initiations under the Ritvik system. Very clear. Huh? It should be very clear. People always, I'm always hearing this pejorative term, oh, you're a Ritvik. Yeah. We're not Ritviks, we're Prabhupada disciples, and we believe in Prabhupada living with us in sound in his Vani incarnation, and we do not compromise. It is, if a man is found who agrees to become a Brahmin's disciple, he is also given the chance to become a Brahmin. The Brahmin is always engaged in the worship of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the Brahmins are eligible to accept all kinds of charity. But if the Brahmin receives excess charity, they are to distribute it for the service of Vishnu. In the Vedic scriptures, therefore, one is recommended to give in charity to the Brahmins. And by doing so, one pleases Lord Vishnu and all of the demigods. One last thing. I had a talk with our godbrother Krishna Bhakta Ram Raghava in Florida. Now, I've been trying to reach him all week because he's busy. He owns a hotel in New York City, and he's busy with his companies. But the one thing about a professional salesman, and I was trained professionally, I'm not going to talk about that, but anyway, is what you do is you follow up. The most important thing with like I tried to rent a place in Oakland, for example, to store our books at one point in our evolution now. And for the last 2 weeks, since I called them, these people have called me every day. Oh, by the way, do you need this? And well, and I try to keep telling them, look, I don't need the space now. We're doing something else. But they follow up. So I kept following up with Krishna Bhakta. So I called him last week, no answer. And I thought, okay, stay calm. And then I called him the next day, no response. So I called him again. I called him 5 times. And guess what? Yesterday he called me back. Oh, and he apologized. Oh, Prabhu, I'm sorry. I knew I could read his mind. He's a very busy guy. He's somewhat materially successful. So he called me back and I talked to him. I told him our story that we were looking for a place to store our Bhagavatams on the East Coast. And he's got a house, incidentally, Ram Raghava, he has a house right next to the Alachua Temple. right next, the land right beside it. I think he has 10 acres. And he has buildings. And he says, before I could even say anything, to ask him, he goes, oh, by the way, why don't you just, if you want to ship them over here, we'll store them. I have a building that's air conditioned for the books. And in this way, I'll be able to take care of the books for you. I said, oh, really? And by the way, if you need some money to help with the shipping, I'd be happy to donate. So this is the point, that some people, they have a natural inclination to serve the devotees and the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And those people are the people that we want to be in association with in this effort to protect Prabhupada's legacy. I'm sorry, I'm going to run over time here. I had an interesting conversation with a devotee in San Francisco. And she's been distributing books for the last 9 years out of her Uber car. She drives Uber. She's practically crippled. But nonetheless, she used to associate with Prabhupada back in the 60s when Prabhupada was in San Francisco, and subsequently with Jayananda. So she's got all great pastimes. She has a whole, Ram Raghava, she has a whole museum of Prabhupada paraphernalia. Glasses, a yogi hat, a drum, one of Prabhupada's mridangas, Prabhupada's harmonium, like really good stuff. I'm hoping someday we can make an exhibit of it at a Prabhupada Memorial Center, like the Lincoln Memorial Center, so that we recognize that Prabhupada is the actual hero of the modern times, not these other karmis. But anyway, she told me that the persons that were printing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Delhi edition, told her a couple of years ago, there will be no more Delhi Bhagavatams. True, and they're not printing the books anymore. The group that was printing them, they've stopped. So these books that are coming, these Delhi Bhagavatams, she was celebrating that I told her, by the way, we have Delhi Bhagavatams, we undertook it, and they're there for you. And she's going to undertake putting them in her Uber car. She shows me how she does it, Ram Raghava. She puts them in the back seats. And when the people get in, they thumb through and look at the books. And then she somehow or other goes, because she's a Sankirtan devotee. And she distributed 8,900 books in the last 8 years doing this. Gee. Does that bring a smile to your face, Ram Raghava? Does it? Come on, get that smile on there. And thank you, everyone. We're going to move forward with our first section, which is a Prabhupada preaching segment. And then we'll move into the other aspects of our newly developed program. We're having some trouble with the copyrights on some of the stuff. So if you're having a little bit of trouble with some of the connectivity, we're going to have to do a reproduction of it in the near future in order to get rid of these copyright problems. Okay? All glories to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Haribol.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam.
So when we become puzzled with these material affairs, what to do, not to do or not to do, this is the example. At that time, we must approach a guru. That is the instruction here you see. Jatchya, prichhami tang dharma sangamura chita. When we are bewildered, we do not distinguish what is religious and what is not religious. do not use our position properly, that is tatpanna dosha apahata sabha. At that time, there is need of Guru. That is the Vedic instruction. Tad vijnanatham sa gurumeva vigacche. Srutiriyam brahmanishtham. This is the duty, this is civilization. That we are meeting with so many problems of life. That is natural. In this material world, the material world is problems of life. Padanga padanga jada vipadam. Material world means in every step there is danger. That is material world. So, therefore we should take guide from Guru, from the teacher, from the spiritual master, how to make progress. Because that will be explained later on. That the goal of our life, in this, at least in this human form of life, in the Aryan civilization, the goal of life is to understand our constitutional position, what I am. What I am. If we do not understand what I am, then I am equal to the cats and dogs. The dogs, cats, they do not know. They think that they are the body. That will be explained. So, in such condition of life, when you are puzzled, actually you are puzzled every moment. Therefore it is necessary one should approach to a proper Guru. Now, Arjuna is approaching Krishna, the first class Guru. First class Guru. Guru means the Supreme Lord. He is Guru of everyone, Param Guru. So, anyone who represents Krishna, he is also Guru. That will be explained in the 4th chapter. Evam parampara praptam imang rajarsayo vidu. So, Krishna is showing example where we should offer our surrender and accept Guru. Here is Krishna. So, you have to accept Krishna or his representative as Guru. Then your problems will be solved. Otherwise, it is not possible. Because he can say what is good for you, what is bad for you. He asking, Jat Shreya Sat, Nishtitam Bruhitam, Nishtitam. If you want advice and instruction, Nishtitam, which is without any doubt, without any illusion, without any mistake, without any cheating, that is called Nishtitam. That you can get from Krishna or his representative. You cannot get right information from the imperfect person or a cheater. That is not right instruction. Nowadays it has become a fashion. Everyone is becoming Guru and is giving his own opinion. I think, in my opinion. That is not Guru. Guru means he should give evidences from Shastra. The Shastra vidimussijya vartate kamakar. Anyone who does not give evidences, proof from the Shastra, then no siddhing savabnati. He does not get at any time success, no sukham, neither any happiness in this material world, no parangati, and what to speak of elevation in the next life. These are the injunctions.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. And just to highlight that, Prabhupada said you have to accept a guru, a bona fide guru, and your problems will be solved. But the representative must be authoritative, and he doesn't have an opinion. A lot of these new age gurus, they have an opinion, but Prabhupada says, devotee has no opinion. He simply repeats what he heard from his spiritual master according to Shastra. Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. And in this way, he's qualified to preach to others and make devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan movement. We'll keep going. We've got the next section, which is the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava, and then we'll have our reading and discussion with Yashodanandana Prabhu from the Delhi Bhagavatams, and see them behind Ram Raghava. These books are available to be distributed worldwide through the Prabhupada Disciples Association, Hare Krishna Society. Haribol.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Muspat Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Sattvaresvara Samadhati Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Kodi Vaishnava ki Jai Ramacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktamani ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Mokh Gopinath Sam Khund Radha Khund Giri Udhan ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai की जाए जमुना माई की जाए गुरु द्वारका धाम की जाए स्वामी तो भक्तविंद की जाए और ग्लोरी टू देयर सिमर और ग्लोरी टू देयर सिमर थैंक यू वेरी मच
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam, after offering respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayana. 2. To the Naranarayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being. 3. To the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Then 4. To Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. As we do every week, we will be reading a few selected verses pertaining to the meaning and benefit of hearing this powerful transcendental literature. Yadanudyasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kubidastasya kona kuryat kataratim. Intelligent persons do cut off the internet of the knot of reactionary work by remembrance of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not give attention to his message? Shushrushoho shraddadhanasya vasudeva kataruchihi Syan mahat sevaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat. O the twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done. And as the result of such great service, affinity in the messages of Vasudeva is made possible. Shrinvatam svakata Krishnaha punyasravana kirtanaha hridyantasto yabadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashtaprayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chetayeterana viddam stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and anchorings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in a mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in a mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened mind and man affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord can possibly know scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya garantis chidyante sarvasamshaya kshiyante chasya karmani drishtaevatmanishware. The knot of one's heart is thus pierced, and all misgivings are cut into pieces. The chain of fruitive actions are terminated along with the seeing of oneself, the dominating factor. So we will proceed with our verse. It should be noted that this reading is being conducted on the basis of the original 1962 New Delhi edition, and all English synonyms, translations, or purports are from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. We are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 7. Yasyeve Shriyamanayam Krishna Paramapurushe Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha Shokamoha Bhayapaha Yasyam. This Vedic literature, Shriyamananam, simply by giving oral reception, Krishna, unto Lord Krishna, Parama, supreme, Purushe, unto the personality of Godhead, Bhaktir, feelings of devotional service, Utpadyate, sprouts up, Pumsaha, of the living being, Shoka, lamentation, Moha, illusion, Bhaya, fearfulness, Apaha, that which extinguishes. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Simply giving an oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feelings for loving devotional service of the Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once for extinguishing the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Purport by His Divine Grace. There are various senses of the living being, of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of enemy while awakened, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. As such, particular importance of the organ for hearing is mentioned here of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely to get free from 3 material pangs. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. He is after the mirage of illusory things and is always afraid of his supposed enemy. These are the primary symptoms of material diseases. And it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And as soon as this is affected, the symptoms of the material diseases disappear. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead, and in this statement, the all-perfect personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is clearly confirmed. The ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Love is a word which is strictly used in relation with men and women. That is the etymological order in English language. And therefore, love is the only word that can be properly used in relation with Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusha, or the supreme male personality. As such, the affection between the Lord and the living entities are of exactly like the male and the female. Therefore, the word love of Godhead by the living entities is quite appropriate. Such loving devotional service of the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. The Lord is absolute in all respect, and as such, there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. As such, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once in the matter of removing all material affections mentioned above. As mentioned herein before, a living entity develops a sort of complexity by material association, and the illusory engagement of material body is accepted as actual fact. Under such false complexity only, the living beings under different categories of life become illusioned in different ways. Lost a spot here. Okay. Even in the most developed stage of human life, the same illusion prevail in the form of many isms and divide the loving relation with the Lord, and thereby dividing the loving relation between man to man. By hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed, and the real peace of society begins, which politicians aspire after so eagerly in so many political and fearful situations. The politician wants peaceful situation between man to man, nation to nation, but at the same time, on account of too much attachment for material domination, there are the illusion and fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring about peace in society. It can only be done by hearing the subject matter described in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The foolish politician may go on holding peace and summit conferences for hundreds of years. Still, they will fail to achieve success, because till we reach to the stage of establishing our lost relation with Krishna, the illusion of accepting the body as the self will prevail, and as such, the complexity of fearfulness will also prevail. So far, the validity of Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from revealed scriptures, and there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from personal experience of devotees in various places like Vrindavan, Navadvip, Puri, and other places. Even in the Kaumadi dictionary, the synonyms of Krishna is given as the son of Yasoda and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Param Brahman. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life in the form of dissipation of worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are practical tests for the one who has actually given a submissive oral reception to the readings of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakayam Chakshurun Miritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasme Shri Gurave Namah Bhagavad Vandana Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataham Adadana Danteridam Yache Punaha Punaha Srimadrupa Padam Bhoja Dhulisyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadasu Asmi Sarabata Tat Kripa Pikshako Nityam Tat Prishta Sat Karomi Svam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This particular purport by Srila Prabhupada is very important. So the question may be, why is it so important? Well, we see in the last sentence of this purport, Prabhupada explains nicely. The last two sentences. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life in the form of dissipation of worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are practical tests for the one who has actually given a submissive oral reception to the readings of Srimad Bhagavatam. Last night, in the preparation for today's reading and discussion, I put this particular text in the Google, and it came up with so many different citations from Srila Prabhupada explaining the meaning of this verse in so many different ways. Now, this is quite important because anybody who has a computer and not very much skilled, you can use Google and you put the first Sanskrit line or the first two Sanskrit lines of the particular verse, you put it in there and you can see so many different explanations from Srila Prabhupada. Many of these are assembled on a Vanyupedia website, which is a wonderful service by different devotees in Europe, to basically compile all of Prabhupada's statements or many of Srila Prabhupada's statements on a specific topic or a specific set of Sanskrit words. In this particular case, it's very important because Srila Prabhupada explains not only the position of Vyasadeva, but the exalted position of this literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, in a lecture on October 15, 1975, this is a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 5 and 6, in Johannesburg, South Africa, on October 15, 1975, Srila Prabhupada explains, this Srimad Bhagavatam is Sattvata Samhitam, spiritual knowledge. It has nothing to do with anything material. Simply spiritual knowledge. So Vidvan means the most learned Vyasadeva, not ordinary. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite. He is Mahamuni. Muni means thoughtful philosopher. And he is Mahamuni. He is greater than any thoughtful philosopher. Vyasadeva, Veda Vyasa. His name is Veda Vyasa. Veda Vyasa means he compiled all this Vedic literature. And at last, he summarized the whole Vedic knowledge into Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra, a small aphorism, Janmadyasya Yataha, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Atato Brahma Jignasa, Anandamayo Bhyasat, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. In short aphorism, it has got very deep meaning. The point being here is that Srila Prabhupada, and we've discussed this several times, had an amazing empowered personality to be able to explain the same verse in multiple ways, in multiple lectures, in multiple conversations. Because while Prabhupada was with us, we did not have this technology, this computer technology, this YouTube technology, email technology. Although they had computers at that time, still it was not quite as advanced and developed as what we now have today. Because, for example, like some devotee recently mentioned, that Prabhupada's position is so special because we do not have the lectures of Jiva Goswami or Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur or conversation between Narottam Das Thakur and his disciples. Now, we do have the writings of these great acharya in Sanskrit and Bengali, but Srila Prabhupada was explaining in simple, clear English language with profuse Bengali and Sanskrit quotations, the same text in so many different ways. For example, if you take the verse, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, you put it on Google and go to Vanitpedia, you're going to see so many times that Srila Prabhupada explained the same verse from so many different angles of vision. And why is this important? For those who are serious about spiritual life and spiritual advancement, this is a great treasure. This is a great gift that anyone can take advantage of. One does not have to be highly educated or have understanding of Sanskrit or to be a highly learned scholar. No. What does it say here? If you look at the text that we're reading, say, simply giving an oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feelings for loving devotional service of the Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, it sprouts out at once for extinguishing the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. This is the greatness of Srimad Bhagavatam and the greatness of Srila Prabhupada's presentation of this exalted literature. Now, this is very important to the point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam, that the text of Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless evidence, spotless Vedic evidence. According to the text of the Garuda Purana, Artoyam Brahmasutranam Bhararta Vinirnayaha, that the purport of Vedanta Sutra and the purport of the Bharata, Mahabharata, is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is why it is so important. Because after Vyasadeva finished compiling the Mahabharata, he still was not satisfied. He had compiled the Puranas, he had compiled, divided the Vedas, he had compiled the exalted 100,000 verse Mahabharata. Still, he was not happy. That is why his guru, Narada Muni, came to see him and identified the source of the problem. And the recommendation given by Narada Muni is to concentrate on the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. That's why in the beginning of the Mahabharata and in the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, we read this verse every day. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam. We offer a respectful obeisance to Lord Narayana, Krishna, to the incarnation Nara Narayana, to the Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Vyasadeva himself. This is very important because we do not start studying the Shastra without paying proper respects to these exalted personalities, the great Mahajanas, the great Acharyas and Sadhus, who have presented these gems, transcendental gems, for the benefit of human society. This is not very complicated. This is not difficult to understand. Anyone can understand the topic. All it requires is submissive oral reception and no concoction. It's very important. because we see in the Mahabharata itself, Dharma Sattvam Nihitam Guhayam, that the truth of Dharma, of religious or philosophical inquiry, is very difficult to understand. Guhaya means secret. But how to understand? Mahajano yenagatasa pantaha, by taking shelter of great Mahajanas, of these great authorized acharyas. That's why these great personalities like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Pillai Lokacharya, Vedanta Desika, in our Sampradaya we have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, so many exalted souls. And in recent times, the three great acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, have all presented the same message of taking shelter of this exalted transcendental literature. There's a very interesting book that was compiled at the direction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada called Gaudiya Kanta R, which divides the topics of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in 20 different sections. And there's an entire section dedicated to explaining the glories and the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very, very important. If anybody is serious, anybody can study the first canto, first chapter, the first 3 verses, and there is elaborate description by Srila Prabhupada about this powerful transcendental literature and the immense benefits of hearing this powerful sacred Shastra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
When you chant the holy name of Krishna, Krishna is present in that sound vibration. And this purifies us. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Marjanam means to cleanse the person. And similarly, in today's purport, fabulous purport, by the way, Ram Raghava, and the last purport in the first volume of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Delhi version, fabulous purport. It seems Prabhupada was getting more clarity as he carried on in his work and how to explain it to the conditioned souls. The remedy for spiritual advancement. Although some people think Vapu is more important than Vani, this is an incorrect understanding of our philosophy. And here, in this purport, it is clearly pointed out what is the method for purifying yourself of material contamination. It's a disease. Just like a person's sick, they have to take the medicine prescribed by the doctor. And usually they say, you have to take all of the pills. Don't just take a few. You have to follow the prescription. So, Krishna consciousness, we have to follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. That is the cure for the material disease that we're in. There's no compromise. And I wanted to read an interesting section from a lecture by Srila Prabhupada in October 22nd, 1972. And it's still relevant in 2025. If Krishna, if you can draw a little attention of Krishna, Yat Karunya Daktaksha Vaibhavatam Katayisa Vaibhavatam, Prabhupada Saraswati says, if somehow or other you can draw a little attention of Krishna, your life is successful. immediately. And how can you draw? Bhaktyamam abhijanati, simply by serving Krishna. Take service. Take to the service of Krishna, as it is ordered by the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Because spiritual master is the representative of Krishna. We cannot approach Krishna directly. Yasya prasad bhagavat prasada. If you have a bona fide spiritual master, bona fide, it is also not very difficult. Everyone can become representative of Krishna. How? If you simply carry the message of Krishna without any adulteration. That's all. Simple. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Amara Agya Guru Hana, you become a spiritual master under my order. So if you carry out, what's the order? The order is, Prabhupada's explaining here, so if you carry out the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna, then you become Guru. Amara Agaya Guru Hana. Unfortunately, and here he says very definitively, unfortunately, we do not wish to carry out the order of the Acharyas. Now, he's referring here to his godbrothers in the Gaudiya Math, and it's the same in ISKCON, Gaudiya Math Part 2. We manufacture our own ways, opinion, mental speculation. Prabhupada says here, we have practical experience how a great institution was lost by whimsical ways. Just like I explained at the beginning of the class, how all of these fabulous temples in Canada have been lost due to whimsical ways of a few people. Yes, whimsical, and it's a tragedy. Without carrying out the order of the spiritual master, they manufactured something and the whole thing was lost. Now he's referring to his godbrothers. Be clear on this. Prabhupada had practical experience of the matter, and we do as well. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur stresses very much on the words of the spiritual master. If you stick to the order of the spiritual master, then, without caring for your own convenience or inconvenience, then you become perfect. So, these are very important words from Srila Prabhupada. How to guide us into the future and avoid the downfall of his movement, just like he warned us based on his experience with the Gaudiya Math, that's how that failed. And we're moving to another section here at the program, which is time and circumstance. And this is a new section of our discussion, which Prabhupada is explaining how to preach according to time and circumstance. Yashodanandana Prabhu, please go ahead.
Very important points. And as we discussed earlier, the transcendental potency of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very important to understand it, because on this talking point alone, we can preach to anybody. It's just like in this particular verse, Prabhupada was explaining how to get rid of lamentation, illusion, all of these problems. Everybody in the material world is suffering from these problems. That is a common thread with every human being. And the way to solve this is to take shelter of this great literature. It is not very difficult. That is why we at the Hare Krishna Society and the Prabhupada Disciples Association, we put a little bit of effort into this project to get the original words of Srila Prabhupada in 1962, even if it has a few little typing mistakes or whatever they are, the original words that Prabhupada brought to America, his original Srimad Bhagavatam, and make them available for the benefit of devotees and benefit of anyone who is willing to hear. So we will continue with our reading of all of our reading and discussion with the Time, Place, and Circumstances, which was a compilation that was done in Badger, California in 1993 by several devotees, and I did some final editing. We will be reading from page number 10. This explains Srila Prabhupada's unique position and explains why some of Srila Prabhupada's arrangements do not need explanation, because some people argue that Prabhupada could not do this, did not do that, did not set up a rhythmic system. And we say, let us understand the nature of the unprecedented activities of Srila Prabhupada. Point number 8, Srila Prabhupada allowed young unmarried women or brahmacharinis to live in proximity of the major temples in brahmacharini ashrams. That has never been done before. Point number 9, Srila Prabhupada allowed women disciples to perform artik and deity worship in major temples. This had never been done in any major public temples in India before. And Prabhupada explains this in point number 38. Let me get the reference so people will not try to accuse us of making this up. This is from a letter to Uttama Shloka Das on August 13th, 1974. Regarding women worshiping the deity, in the Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Shriyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. The idea is that everyone who is properly initiated in following the rules and regulations can worship the deity. There's another nice quotation in this connection, a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Guru Das on July 1st, 1974. The main thing is the ceremony, Krishna Balaram temple opening in Vrindavana, shall be conducted by our own men. We do not have to be dependent on taking help from a person who will not even eat with us, thinking us inferior. Apologize. All over the world, in Paris, New York, Australia, etc., our men and women are worshiping the deity very nicely, and I am very proud of their worship. There is no reason why we have to think we are dependent on any Indian Goswami in order to conduct our ceremony in Vrindavana. Very important point. Point number 10, Srila Prabhupada allowed men and women devotees to live in the same temple buildings. This point was vehemently protested by many of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers. They repeatedly criticized Srila Prabhupada for engaging all of us in allowing the devotee men and devotee women in separate quarters in the same buildings. However, the Acharya explains, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to deliver all the fallen souls. Therefore, he devised many methods to liberate them from the clutches of Maya. And this is, I believe, from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 7, text number 38 to 48, 38. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. It is the concern of the Acharya to show mercy to the fallen souls. In this connection, Desha Kalapatra, the place, the time, and the object should be taken into consideration. Since the European and American boys and girls in our Krishna consciousness movement preach together, less intelligent men criticize that they are mingling without restriction. In Europe and America, boys and girls mix without unrestrictedly and have equal rights. Therefore, it is not possible to completely separate the men from the women. However, we are thoroughly instructing both men and women how to preach, and actually they are preaching wonderfully. Of course, we very strictly prohibit illicit sex. Boys and girls who are not married are not allowed to sleep together or live together. and there are separate arrangements for boys and girls in every temple. For in the temple, we do not allow even husband and wife to live together. The results of this are wonderful. Both men and women are preaching the gospel of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna with redoubled strength. Now, it's important here when we look at these statements of Srila Prabhupada. People always bring up these points about follow the tradition, that there's no example of what Prabhupada did before, but practically everything Prabhupada did for advancing and preaching the Krishna conscious movement was unprecedented. Prabhupada goes on. Evidence number 41, a letter to Rabindra Swarup Das on January 25th, 1972. Regarding householders living in the temple, in India, no woman is allowed to stay in the temple at night. But for our preaching work, I have permitted women to stay in the temple. But in the temple, husband and wife should live separately. There are many young brahmacharis and sannyasis in the temple, and men and women living together is simply a source of agitation. So therefore, this is my order. Ideally, the husband and wife can live separately in the temple. If this is not possible, they should live together close to the temple and attend arati, etc. And if this is not possible, the last alternative is to live away from the temple and conduct your own deity worship, etc. Back to you in the studio, Vishwakarma. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes, very informative reading here. And I look back at back in 1971 when I joined the mission in Hamilton, and time, place, and circumstance. What could we do, Ram Raghava? None of us had any money, and our only income was basically going out on the street and trying to sell a few magazines. We had no books per se. We had some, remember we used to do that, Yashoda, we had incense. Remember they started this incense, so we'd go out, we'd get somebody to give us a donation for some incense in a magazine, a small booklet if we had it. But we had no means of raising money. So as a result, they called these buildings that we rented as temples. Oh, we have all these temples. But what was it? It was a rented house. In Hamilton, in the Radha Krishna Temple album that I have a copy of, I don't have it in front of us, it lists the Hamilton Temple there. It was only there temporarily, but it seemed like, wow, look at all these temples. Temple here, temple there, temple here, temple there. But were they temples? No, they were rented houses. We were at 20 Charlton Street in Hamilton, which has now been torn down. It was 30 years ago it got torn down, an apartment building put up. But at the same time, we were all joining the so-called temple, and it was one house. What did you do? Well, you had men, you had women, and you had some couples. So time, place, and circumstance. We had one room where the men stayed, the brahmacharis, the ones that weren't married. Oh, we stayed in the room. And down the hall, there was another room. The ladies stayed there, not together. They stayed separate. This was practical. And it was, it's true. That's how it operated. When we moved to Gerrard Street, it was the same thing. We had the third floor of 187 Gerrard Street. We were separated. All the men stayed on the third floor. I've got pictures, I have to send them to Ram Raghava, of you see the brahmachari ashram back then. It was little cubby holes, and the men put their stuff in the cubby holes, and downstairs was the women on the second floor. We never saw them. They just walked by, and you went downstairs to the temple room, which was the living room. But it was told it was a temple. Well, it certainly wasn't Krishna Balaram Mandir in India. It was a rented house with a few people living in it. Well, we got up to 50 people in the Toronto Gerrard Street Temple. And we lived on each floor, and then people used to sleep in the prasadam room. We ran out of space. Men would bring their sleeping bag down and put it on the floor in the prasadam room and sleep there, and then get up early in the morning and wash the area. You got a cloth, Dharma Bhavana? Remember, you get a cloth and you wash the floor to get rid of your sleep vibration, get rid of it. And then it was ready for the prasadam room. Time, place, and circumstance. Were we happy? Yes, we were. Because we were focused on Prabhupada's mission. And we were doing Sankirtan, we were doing book distribution, we were performing austerities, and it was blissful because we were not part of this material world. We were part of the spiritual world created by our founder, Acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and we experienced nectar. You ever hear that term these days? Oh, that was nectar. There's no nectar anymore. It's all been dissipated in the world of sahajism, of fake spiritual activity. And sahajiyas are everywhere, unfortunately. And it's kind of revolting, I find. Like someone asked me, are you going to the Trani Rath Yatra festival? I go, no thanks. I don't feel like associating with a bunch of sahajiyas. Now someone says, that's rather harsh. Well, we have to know how to pick our association, everyone. Be careful. Don't associate with people that are fakes. It won't help you. It actually will harm you. And in this way, in the early years, we carried on, and it was a blissful, ecstatic time in the history of the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya. And we're going to move to Dharma Bhavana in Dallas, Texas. Maybe he can share some of his remembrances when he was there back in the 70s. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All goes to Prabhupada. Yeah. It's kind of amazing how devotees could live very, very simply as brahmacharis or brahmacharinis in the same building and just perform devotional service and be happy. We had a schedule, a morning program, a temple to live, a prasadam, and Sankirtan did during the day. You also mentioned Alachua, and this is kind of a phenomenal thing that devotees around the world may have a hard time understanding how maybe 2,000 to 3,000 devotees live within about a 50-mile square radius. But for 40, a long time, devotees have been moving there for Gurukula and inexpensive property and country living and what maybe other motives also. And there's maybe 5 or 10 really, really super wealthy Prabhupada followers who are very dedicated, but who have a hard time to establish a temple there because of the devotees can't get along with each other and maybe family encumbrances. And so the devotees who don't have anything, maybe 100 dedicated Prabhupada followers don't have anything, complain, why isn't there a center here? But somehow or another, it's Krishna's arrangement that people have to perform service in their own homes. It's just a difficult situation. But there are many really, really dedicated Prabhupada followers there, kind of like you mentioned before. But this is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And it seemed like all these, there's maybe about several dozen different sanghas there. And it seemed like for those who are really dedicated Prabhupada followers and disciples, the thing that really is holding us together is our first edition original books. So that's why we talk about this so much. Some of the devotees go out in Harinam together and they have disputes over if you wear civilian clothes or if you wear devotee clothes. So some of these petty differences come there between devotees. It's just hard for devotees to get together and agree with each other, even for Harinam. It's just, but anyway, I just wanted to mention that how the original books is really what's keeping us together in Sankirtan movement. That's my thoughts, Haribo.
That's well spoken. Thank you. It's interesting you brought that point up, and everyone here what happened was I called Krishna Bhakta yesterday, or excuse me, he called me finally. He called me back. And we had a discussion, and we were originally planning to store the Bhagavatams in what they call, or it was called, Prabhupada Village in wherever it is, North Carolina. And it was not me that was commenting, but Krishna Bhakta, who's more familiar with these situations and circumstances. And he said to me that there's multiple groups of different sects, sectarian sects in that group, in that so-called Prabhupada village, which it isn't. And largely it's been taken over by the disciples of Narayan Maharaj. And disciples used to be, I think Tripurari left there, but offshoots of the Gaudiya Math. And that's why we were having trouble to store books there, because it's not really focused on Srila Prabhupada anymore. And that's the way. It's a lot of facade, fake advertising. It's Prabhupada Village. No, it's not. And similarly, by the way, I've been talking to a devotee in Hawaii. You know, we're fortunate we get to discuss things with people globally in our organization. And he goes regularly to the temple in Hawaii. And he said to me, well, the temple's basically run by Narayan devotees. Narayan devotees, Gaudiya Math people. That there's no real focus on Prabhupada. So these are situations which are being explained to us from people on the ground in these particular areas to help us understand. We're not criticizing, we're just explaining what the reality is. And your point's well taken, that we take shelter in association with the use of technology of Srila Prabhupada in this program and in other forms of technology, the videos and kirtans and bhajans like that. We take shelter online with them. And in this way, the Vani incarnation of Srila Prabhupada is alive with us. And this is wonderful. And we're very fortunate. And Ram Raghava, by the way, maybe you could tell us how many people are watching on, we're having technology problems. I'm meditating on how we're going to solve them. So we apologize to everybody. I didn't send out the messages to everybody today. It didn't appear on my Facebook page. I don't know. It's just the way it is. But we'll keep going. How many people are on YouTube today, Ram Raghava?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. There are 11 people on YouTube live stream. No questions yet.
Okay. Any question from you?
Yes. I was talking
ahead.
to Bhakta Vinay yesterday, and we were talking about some temples that are apparently still following Prabhupada as the guru, but they're introducing new fire sacrifices that Srila Prabhupada did not mention. So I was wondering if one of you could comment on that.
Well, it was interesting to note, too, that I was reading in the Krishna book today about Shiv Ratri. Prabhupada's saying that we don't really practice that particular celebration or celebrate it. And that was something that back in the 70s we didn't have as a feature. Like, for example, there's the Festival of Lights, in October.
Diwali.
Festival of Lights. Now, we never followed that at all in the 70s. There was no Festival of Lights. It's become popular because it's popular amongst the East Indian community. So things have changed dramatically for economic reasons or business-wise, collecting money from people for donations. But it was a different standard. Yashodhanandana, maybe you could also chip in here. Hare Krishna.
Well, these are all very important points, because what we're seeing is that many devotees get influenced, and some of them get victimized by the propaganda of various camps. Now, we're not interested in taking advantage of anybody or criticizing anybody. All we want is devotees to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, take shelter of his instructions, take shelter of the transcendental Vani incarnation of his transcendental books, and perfect their lives, make some tangible spiritual advancement. That is why on this program, we repeatedly, and every time we come together, we emphasize this most important point about taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada's writings, his original writings. Now, I've heard all the arguments about we're not changing, we're just editing, we're restoring the book. But Prabhupada did not give any authority for anybody to go back to manuscripts and redo his books, like what they've done with the Bhagavad Gita and so many things. As a matter of fact, the last known documented conversation on June 22nd, 1977, when Prabhupada was discussing in his garden at the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was discussing and became upset that when he found out that they were changing his books after the first original printing. Now, I know that this is very controversial for some people, and many devotees have a hard time with that. But when Prabhupada authorized the first edition of his books, that was sufficient. There is no need to change after the first original editions. Prabhupada did not want that. That's why he gave a warning. The next printing, again, should be the original way, or in other words, to conform it to the original edition. Now, Prabhupada wanted nice covers, and he wanted indexes and lists of Sanskrit verses and all these nice things at the end. That's not our point. Our point is that the purports and translation of the verses should remain the same. And this is what we are trying to emphasize. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
There's a very interesting comment here in the chat, if you go to it. Yeah. Rupa Goswami Prabhu in Bombay writes a quote from Srila Prabhupada. So unless one is self-realized, there is practically no use writing about Krishna. This transcendental writing does not depend on material education. It depends on the spiritual realization. You'll find, therefore, in the comments of Bhagavatam by different acharyas, even there are some discrepancies. They're accepted as asatpata. It should be remaining as it is. So Prabhupada lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, 7/5/23/24, Vrindavan, March 31st, 1976. There was a recent controversy that came up online about some people buying a book table at some Sahajya Kirtan Mala or Gala in South Florida or somewhere down there. And they were all upset because they couldn't post or promote the books of their gurus, like Shivaram Swami or Bhakti Vikash or something like that. But they should really read this particular message from Srila Prabhupada. So unless one is self-realized, there is practically no use writing about Krishna or your pastimes. Like, for example, The Journey Home, a book written by one of our godbrothers. It's absolutely total mental concoction. It has nothing to do with the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and our disciplic succession, of which Prabhupada is the founder acharya. So this type of madness is confusing everyone in the modern times. And that's why we recommend, do not read their books, do not associate with them. You saw symbolically, it wasn't really symbolically, I took the photo of it. I took a box of Gitas, those yellow Gitas, I had a box of them, and I burnt them in my backyard. I took out the pictures, as you know, I got them here. I took out all the pictures, I saved them, but tried to distribute them to our friends that come around. But the fact of the matter is, we have the original Bhagavad Gitas, and we have these Bhagavatams, and we're going to work on this project throughout our lives to continually protect the legacy of Srila Prabhupada. This is the Gita from Russia that my friend Abhimanyu did, and he gave this to me as a present. It's quite beautiful, actually. They have 1,200 of these. And he had brought 4 of them over here from Russia, and he gave me one, and I have it. That's nice. The cover is beautiful. I have quite a few Gitas, actually, original Gitas. I have quite a few 70s Gitas, my own original one. And then I got one in Mexico, someone presented to me. I have it in a special case here. Because these are collector's items. Unless we carry on with this effort, it could be the last of a very valuable history of Chaitanya Vaishnavism created by Srila Prabhupada. So please support us. We got a couple of questions here. Let's go. Maxim Hanekata, Belarus. Haribo, Prabhu. Go ahead, please speak up for Yashoda. Go ahead.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. Well, I have 2 questions. One of them, I just a little get entangled about first edition. When Srila Prabhupada said that we should go back to the first edition, what he means in when we're speaking about the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Srimad Bhagavatam daily edition that we are reading here, and also we have first canto that, as I understand, were printed when he started this movie in America.
Okay, let me answer that
Is
first.
it a different editions?
Let me answer that first. So, okay, good question, and we can have Yashoda also give an explanation. When Prabhupada's referring to the original edition, it was the edition that he sanctioned, because he did want his Delhi Bhagavatams edited, by the way. He did, because there are obvious reasons. There's spelling mistakes and grammatical errors like that in the book. So in order for it to be accepted in the universities and colleges, it would need to be edited. And he had a team of people to help him, and he approved those edits, not the 50,000 edits that Jayadvaita and his group have done with the book and changed the meaning of the book. So that is the point. Yes, Prabhupada wanted his books edited, and when he refers to the original, he means the ones that he approved of. And I have a set of them. They're still in print, I think. Not in print, but available for the time being, and you might be able to buy them online. And those are the ones he's referring to. This is a special collector's item, the Delhi Bhagavatams that we're distributing as a memorial set for you to keep in your possession throughout your life. And they're fantastic. They're absolutely. What have you got there in your hand? What's that? Is that a book? Are you going to show us? Maxim, your mic is off.
Oh.
Yeah, there they are. Oh, there he is.
Do you hear me?
Pardon?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll get Yashoda to come in now and give a comment. Please, Yashoda.
Okay, well, with regards to the books of Srila Prabhupada, it is well known that Srila Prabhupada instructed his personal editor at the time, Hayagriva Das, to make editing to the Bhagavad Gita as well as his first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, his first and second canto. And Govinda Dasi, who was Prabhupada's personal servant at the time in 1967-68, was directly with Srila Prabhupada, both in California and in Hawaii, when Srila Prabhupada was training Hayagriva of how he wanted his books to be edited. Hayagriva was very qualified. He had a master's degree in English literature. He was a very qualified person from a technical English grammatical perspective, and Prabhupada authorized him. Now, Prabhupada did level some criticism of him later on in 1977 for changing some statement in a little booklet called Easy Journey to Other Planets. But that is one sentence that can be properly rectified. But in general, Prabhupada authorized his work. Now, there was no need to redo the Bhagavad Gita as what they have done in 1983. And some people claim that Prabhupada approved the re-editing of the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. Now, I've never seen any record of any conversation with Srila Prabhupada when Prabhupada said that. But we do have a record of that conversation on June 22nd, 1977. That's been called the Rascal Editors Conversation, where Prabhupada was not happy to hear that there were changes subsequent to the first printed editions. Now, I just want to specify, we at the Prabhupada Disciples Association of Hare Krishna Society, we do support the point that Prabhupada wanted his book to be very professionally presented with proper indexes, list of Sanskrit verses, the Sanskrit diacritics, and the glossary, and all these things. This is important. But as far as Prabhupada's purports and Prabhupada's translation of the verses, that should not be altered. Prabhupada did not want that. As much as people claim that Prabhupada authorized it, we say no, because in 1977, when Srila Prabhupada found out that they were editing his books, see, Prabhupada is saying here, so what are you going? It is a very serious situation. You write one letter that why you have made so many changes and whom to write, who will care? All rascals are there. Write to Satsvaru that this is the position. They're doing anything and everything at their whim. The next printing should be again to the original way. Now, I'm not a PhD in English grammar. As a matter of fact, English is not my first language, but it's not very difficult to understand what Prabhupada is saying here. When we were teaching the students in the Gurukul at one point in 1977, some of the students pointed out that this is a different book. There were 3 different editions. I was reading from the 1969 edition. They were reading from subsequent editions, and it was all different. Prabhupada did not like that. He did not want that. That's why he is saying the original way. So this is a very important point that many people have difficulty with. Now, we're not attacking anybody's character here or Prabhupada's statements about so-and-so being a nice Vaishnava. That is fine. That is not the issue. The issue is the integrity of Prabhupada's first original edition. And we do not accept this mentality that some people have that anything that's been published pre-1978 is an original book. It is not. Many books were changed and altered during Prabhupada's personal manifested presence. Ishopanishad, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Nectar of Devotion, Krishna book. Many books were being re-edited after the first printed edition. Prabhupada did not want that. And this has never been corrected. It has never been fixed because of the false ego of a few individuals who think they know better than Prabhupada. Back to you in the studio, Vishwakarma or Maxim Prabhu in Belarus.
Well,
Hare
the
Krishna.
one thing is, Yashodanandana Prabhu, that this problem has created a lot of confusion, and we're trying to work towards finding solutions to this as we move forward in time. So we'll make an effort. Prabhu, we're going to pause your Maxim for tomorrow. Save your question for actually Wednesday. And we'll move towards, who is that other, what was that other Prabhu? He had his hand up. What was his name? There it is. I got to look at the screen here. Let's see. We've got someone else with a question.
Myself, Prabhuji.
Oh,
Nilesh,
okay. Nilesh Sharma. Go ahead. Go ahead, Prabhu. We're going to move to the class, a lecture right after this, but go ahead, ask that question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My question to Yashodanand Prabhu is this. You mentioned about Narayan Maharaj and his disciples kind of doing whatever they're doing.
I
But the
did.
question arises,
Go ahead.
Yashodanand Prabhu, is we know that Keshav Maharaj was the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who is Prabhupada's god brother. And if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had not nominated anybody as to be the next Acharya, then of course Narayan Maharaj becomes redundant, is because Narayan Maharaj is not a official disciple
Correct.
or grand disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. And so when he left his body, I remember one of his sanghas had come down to Miami for some preaching work. And I asked to one of the senior person who's to run the show in Alachua about run the show in Alachua on Narayan Maharaj's Sangha, is that now that Narayan Maharaj has disappeared, what happens to initiations in Narayan Maharaj's Sangha? Of course, the senior most person at that time kept quiet. He did not say anything. And of course, there was somebody else who said, well, Narayan Maharaj has not appointed anybody, but there are a lot of Madhyam Adhikaris who are going to be initiating on his behalf, and he will be doing it. So what are your thoughts about this whole thing right from the get-go, that Keshav Maharaj was not authorized by anybody to become a initiating guru? So then how does Narayan Maharaj become? And then, of course, anybody following in Narayan Maharaj's principle. So that was one of my questions to you.
Okay, Yashoda, please. Go ahead.
Let me try to keep it brief. This is a long topic. In 1978, when we were in Vrindavan, after Prajimna wrote his letter to Satsvarup complaining and expressing various concerns about the introduction of Vyasasanas, Pranam mantras, and all of the nonsensical introductions, which were never sanctioned and implemented by Srila Prabhupada in his society, we went and visited Narayan Maharaj in Mathura. And as part of the discussion with him, we asked him, why is it that in this mat you don't initiate? And he told us that his guru, Keshav Maharaj, told him not to initiate because in his mat they delegated somebody named Vamana Maharaj, His Holiness Vamana Maharaj, to carry on the initiations. So it was a well-known fact in all the different Gaudiya mats that Narayan Maharaj had been told by his own guru not to initiate anybody. This was well known. So all these initiations that he conducted, whether they're authorized or not, is doubtful, and we know they were never sanctioned by his own guru. As far as Keshav Maharaj, Prabhupada said different things about him. He praised him being a good devotee. And also at one point, he gave his name along with Sridhar Maharaj and other associates in the Gaudiya Math for being responsible for unauthorizedly appointed Ananta Vasudev in 1937 as the Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. So Prabhupada never supported this nonsense idea of a Charya appointment. He did not support it in the case of the Gaudiya Math, and he did not support that idea in the case of ISKCON. That's why Prabhupada only nominated officiating representative or Ritviks. They don't like to hear that. It doesn't fit into whatever program they have, but the reality, the record, the actual written record does not support their contention. So as far as all these people from Narayan Maharaj's camp to claim this and that, they may not even know their own history. That's all I have to say for now. There's a lot more to this issue. It's just like with the issue of Sridhar Maharaj, many of his followers don't even know that in 1986, he set up a Ritvik system in Ismat. There's a conversation with one Dr. Astana where he mentioned that he was setting up a Ritvik system for any future initiations in Ismat, and he was nominating Govinda Maharaj to do initiations on his behalf. That these conversations are also available. So again, this is part of longer conversations at some point in the future that we will deal with a series of comprehensive segments explaining the history of all of this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Lots of history.
Prabhuji, if you want me to, I have got
What's that?
got the conversation on the Rascal Editors. I pulled it up if you want. If Rupa Goswami will allow me, Rama Raghudas allow me to share the screen. On the
We
Rascal
already
Editors
dealt with that
conversation.
earlier.
Yeah, we're gonna move forward because we're moving. It's a little late. The next thing on this program tomorrow or Wednesday we can go through it. We're going to move forward with our next section, which is Prabhupada Speaks, and this is a short lecture from Srila Prabhupada, and then the kirtan, and then the closing, and then japa class again. Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam.
There are millions and millions and trillions of living entities, and each heart visiting them. Sarvasya chaham vidisannivishta. Mattasmeti jnanam apuhananja. He's managing like that. So if we think that he is a controller like us, that is our misconception. He is controller, there is controller, with unlimited knowledge, with unlimited assistance, with unlimited potencies, he is managing. These impersonalities, they cannot think of that a person can be so unlimitedly powerful, therefore they become impersonal. They cannot think of. The impersonal is, they cannot imagine, they imagine when one is person. He is a person like me, I cannot do this, therefore he cannot do. Therefore they are mudha. Abhijananti mang mudha. They are comparing Krishna with themselves. As he is a person, similarly Krishna is a person. He does not know. The Vedas inform that although he is person, he is maintaining all unlimited persons. That they do not. Eko ju bahunam vidadhati kama. That one singular person is maintaining many millions, trillions of persons. We are each, every one, we are person. I am person, you are person, the ant is person, the cat is person, the dog is person, and the insect is person, the trees are person. Everyone is person. Everyone is person. And there is another person, that is God, Krishna. That one person is maintaining all these varieties of millions and trillions of persons. This is Vedic. Eko jo bahunam vidadhati kama nitya nityanam chetana chetananam. This is information. So, Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Am sarvasya prabhava mattas sarvam pravartate iti matya bhajanti mang. Therefore the devotee, when he understands thoroughly that here is one supreme person, who is the leader, who is the controller, who is the maintainer
of everything, then he surrenders unto him and becomes his devotee.
We'll move to the kirtan, led by Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nectar of Devotion, Chapter 8, Offenses to be Avoided. The offenses against the chanting of the holy name are as follows. First, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Second, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Sometimes the atheistic class of men take it that any demigod is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. But one who is a devotee knows that no demigod, however great he may be, is independently as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, if someone thinks that he can chant Kali, Kali or Durga, Durga, and it is the same as Hare Krishna, that is the greatest offense. Third, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Fourth, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. Fifth, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. Sixth, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. Seventh, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. Because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can be freed from all kinds of sinful reactions. It should not be taken that one may continue to act sinfully and after that chant Hare Krishna to neutralize his sins. Such a dangerous mentality is very offensive and should be avoided. 8th, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities. Karma Kanda. 9th, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Anyone can take part in chanting the holy name of the Lord, but in the beginning one should not be instructed about the transcendental potency of the Lord. Those who are too sinful cannot appreciate the transcendental glories of the Lord, and therefore it is better not to instruct them in this matter. 10th, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Ananda Sri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thanks everybody for participating, attending this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. Thanks Vishwakarma Prabhu in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Vijay Prabhu, Pandit Prabhu in Venice, Italy, Maxim Prabhu in Belarus, and we have Ram Raghava in Georgia, Bhaktin Veronica in Italy, Madame Rochissa Devi Mataji dans les Laurentides, dans la belle province de Québec, Pierre Angelo in Switzerland, Neil Sharma Prabhu in Florida, Radharani, wherever you are with the wonderful hairdo, and Bhaktin Amber in Florida, soon to be in Alaska, and Forest Temple in Baja California with the beautiful Prabhupada hats, Bhakta Roy in Mississippi, and Shiv Narayan Prabhu in Japan, Rupa Goswami Prabhu in Mumbai, Trilaka Vijay in Florida, and everybody else participating. Thank you for attending the program. We invite you to come on Wednesday afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, corresponding to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and we look forward to your participation. Please visit our websites. If you have any questions, please send an email or contact Vishwakarma Prabhu or myself at yasoda1008@yahoo.com. That's YASODA 1008@yahoo.com. And we look forward to your participation on Wednesday and next week. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare